And let's see how I made this. So I've animated this bolt inside Cinema 4D and brought it into Houdini as an alembic. It's a simple pendulum animation, as you can see. Then I converted this into the polygons, scaled it down as per the scene scale, and then isolated the head part of the bolt. Now here I took a box, blasted the top so this can hold the nuts that we are going to simulate. Then I merged these two colliders together. Now for this setup we will be using vellum grains. So let's see how I created the grain setup. Here are my grain settings. Particle size set to 0.03, the mass is set to 0.01, and here are the other settings. On the vellum solver, I have kept the timescale at 0.2 because I want a slow and smooth pulling effect. In the forces, I have kept the velocity damping at 0.025, and the rest I believe is all default settings. Oh yes, the substeps I have kept at 7, constraint iterations at 40, collision pass at 10. Now let's jump inside and perform the magic. I took a pop attract node and I referenced the bolt head over here in the geometry source. In the force, I have kept the force scale at 35, which determines how strong the attraction force is. And what I like to do is start with a big number, see how the extreme results are, and then adjust the parameters instead of testing small values too many times. And this saves a lot of time during simulation. I have set peak force distance at 0.01 and maximum distance is set to 0.35. This allows you to control how big or small the area of influence is. I have also used bit of X, which you can find here in this drop down menu. And what this does is randomizes the force scale on the particle, so we don't get a very linear look, but rather than we have some nice variations on the traction force. I have also added a pop track. Now let's catch few frames and see what we got. And this is not what we want. We want the particles to attract to the bolt, fall down after a certain distance, and then attract again. And I've also kept like 50 frames before I start the simulation so the grains can settle down in the container. So how can we fix this? I've animated the activation in the pop attract node in such a way that I get full force for a few frames. When it comes to 0, then back to 1 and it repeats. This creates a base pattern and then I cycle these keyframes by right clicking, going into channels, extrapolation after last segment and cycle offset. And here is what you get. You can see in the graph editor our keyframes have been cycled, and this helps you save a lot of time instead of manually keyframing. And the keyframing is based on the motion of the bolt. So let's do a quick flip book and see what we have now. And this is what we are aiming for. Now let me cache this and let's jump into the stage context. I have imported different models of the nuts as USD using the reference node. I have merged them together and I made sure all of these nuts are of the same size. So before instancing, you have to make sure you are enabling the internal swap. That way you can dive inside, drop an object merge and bring the grains simulation that we did in the object level. And here you are. Now you can see the bolts, the nuts have been instanced on our grain simulation. We can also see the different variations that we have imported. And when you play the sim, you will notice they are going nuts on every frame. So what we are going to do is use Vex to slightly modify the velocity so the orientation behaves more in a predictable way. And here is the Vex. I will pin the Vex code in the comments, and let me quickly explain what is going on here. We are calculating the velocity from the simulation, then we calculate the speed, and this length v is how fast the grains are moving. Here we remove the tiny jitters because vellum grains always move slightly, which causes jitter. And here we convert the velocity to rotation. Now let's see the result. So as you can see, the nuts are more stable and we don't see them going crazy or anything, but we do see they all are faced in the same direction. So to give them a more natural behavior, as if the pile of nuts are stacking on together, what we are gonna do is add an orientation attribute and little bit of attribute blur on the orientation, and you can see they started behaving more in natural way. And also make sure the size of these objects are the same scale as the size of the grains, so you don't face any intersection issues, and the collision will give an illusion of the RBD simulation. In this way the behavior feels much more stable and promising with no jitter. Now let me take you through the loop dev setup. I have added a background which I imported from the object level, which is nothing but just a grid behind this. I have added a white car sheet just to give some reflection. You can see here. This is the bolt, and let's check the lighting. Let me turn on the XPU viewport. I have added an HDR to give the fill light in the scene. I have added a background light on the backdrop. I have added a blue light coming from the left side, which acts as a fill light. I have also added a key light coming from the right side, which is slightly warmer. I have created materials in the material library, as you can see, and I have used material linker to link the materials, which is pretty straightforward. And this is what you see in the viewport. For the render settings, I have kept the resolution to HD. I'm using the XPU engine. Path rate sample set 32. Here are my settings. Camera effect, I have enabled depth of field, and I have also exported a couple of EUVs: beauty UV, shadow, diffuse, glossy, albedo, position, Z depth. Yeah, I've also exported cryptomat, which you can create in the extra render wars. And if you tick this split per LPE tag, you can also export the light. You just have to name here, and these light will get exported in the EUVs as well as light IDs. And that's it for the render. Now let's jump into Davinci Resolve and take a look at the poster. If you want to learn how to work with EUVs in Davinci Resolve, check out this tutorial by Mess. He explained everything in this tutorial step by step. Do check out his channel, I will link it below. Now in my setup, I have made a few changes. I have adjusted the gain for the background, for the backlight, you can see. I've also made the changes in the fill light coming from the right side. I've made it a bit more blue. By the way, if you change the gain in light, you will also introduce some noise. Then I have also made some correction in the key light. Next I have added little bit of lens distortion, motion blur, glow, chromatic, vignette, overall color correction, and at the end I have done a color space transform from SSCG to sRGB. And that's it for this tutorial. If you have any doubts, feedbacks or suggestions on what I should create next, drop them in the comments and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.